another episode of Mac Trains. Apologies, it's been a while since the last one was done, but I have been working on a TT layout. I think the last thing I uploaded was plans for that, so I've now worked fairly well on one module and have even begun the next. Never quite finish one module before you start the next. That seems to be the way I work. So some photos first of all of the earlier stages of the first module. It's a simple passing loop allowing a station, nothing more than that. A little bit of scenery at one end, particularly a little bit of a cutting, allowing a bit of rather wonky looking track there. I think it did get straightened up before getting finally laid. These were the Peco unifrog points, the medium points, not the newer short ones. They weren't available at this time. And I hadn't used unifrog before, or electrofrog for that matter, so I was keen to see and practice and experiment a little bit with that. A little bit of a comparison shot. I've got my 0008 on the left in green. I would have loved to get a green 08 for TT, but they're not yet available, so we've gone for the next best, which is the blue. So you get something of an idea here. The idea from the platform, that's roughly where the station is going to be. There's a road descending to it on the left hand side, and then the railway continues off into the scenery at the far end of the shot. A few other wee TT tankers and wagon. Just a little bit of what's available. Doesn't really all match up, but we're not too concerned about that at this point. And again, a slightly closer shot of a comparison between the TT and the 00. And I do think that given the substantial size difference, the detail on the TT holds up really very well as a comparison to the Bachmann 08 there. It's not the newest 08 by any means, but it's still a good model, lovely runner. This was my new toy, very generous gift of a 3D printer. So I was just practicing the little house at TT scale, at least a low relief house. The idea that the item in the foreground was meant to be water-rown, but that didn't quite work so well. It's a bit rough and ready, but you get the idea of what's possible, and haven't really stopped using a 3D printer since. There's an idea of the 08 pulling a wagon, and just some overviews, close up of the 08. Again, I think the detail really does come out very well and hold up very well. View from above. Some practice over the points. So can't practice too much over points, can't test your track, test it. That's what I was trying to do. Trying to check I've got the unifrog wired properly as well. It really does glide over them very nicely. Don't worry, I stopped in time. I think this one might be a bit more sticky. I'm really getting down. This is just on DC. It's an old controller, an old Gauge Master controller. It's a good controller, but it is an older one. There we go. Now you get an idea of the platform area. I did have to adjust this after fitting it. I had to Dremel it because I did not allow enough clearance. So used to working with 00 where the gauge is underscaled, and so the conrods, connecting rods on the 08 are proud of the actual body width, which I hadn't allowed for, and that caused me a bit of problem, so I had to get out the Dremel, which is annoyed at. It sort of affected my overhang slightly, but we have to live with it. The far end you can see bridge mouth. That's a 3D printed, just with a base coat of primer on just now. And some of the black foam pieces are the packaging of the 3D printer, so nothing gets wasted. Again, a sort of close-up shot. Here you're seeing some of the buildings. We've got the waiting room, which I'll just use a small station. That'll serve the purpose, hopefully. Do quite like these wee tankers. They're not the best runners, but they do work nicely. Starting to get some scenery together then. So here we have the obligatory plaster bandage going down, trying to shape the scenery around it. And first base coat. A few chips, trying to see if I can get a rock face out of them. Not terribly successful, but it'll serve the purpose this time round. Obligatory static grass beginning, trying to make the thing look like it was actually part of nature. You can see there, didn't really apply much over the plaster bandage I should have done. That annoys me to this day, but it serves the purpose. I'm quite happy with the overall look if you don't get too close with high resolution photography. So that's it, getting nearly ready for the ballasting to go down. The ballasting started. This I found useful to apply the ballast. Don't have a ballast spreader, or didn't at this point. So the obligatory, that was from an iron. Few houses, they were a card kit that was originally one house, so I split them in two lengthwise and used them as two low relief houses. I tried to weather the one on the right, but because it's just card, it did sort of go a bit wavy on me. The weathering itself I was quite happy with, but the effect on the card was, I should have anticipated that when I didn't properly. So ballast going down, starting to get the idea. The bridge mouth to the right there had been a bit weathered as well. That's just to give you an overall view. It's a bit of a strange photo, but it's one of these panoramic effects, so it looks a bit distorted. Well, that's the first module in its entirety. It is literally just a passing loop. Starting to add in a little bit more detail of scatter cover on the road. Comes out far more speckled there in the photograph than it is to the naked eye. And so I'm putting a bit of hedging as well. You can see the old 3D printed house to the right there, looking rather poor by comparison, but I'm quite pleased with it as my first one, so I wanted to put it onto the layout. Starting to apply a little bit of weathering to the track, to the ballast. That's still wet in the foreground, you can see that. And again, you can see that the station edge needs tidied up. Starting a bit of fencing on. That's from eBay, serves the purpose very nicely. Starting to fill the other side of the bridge, the humpback bridge. Working it in. These I was quite pleased at. These are my stone walls, and they are just a little bit of thin ply, absolutely lathered in PVA, and then laid down into a spread of ballast, and let it set at that. Do the same for the top if you want both sides. That's against the back wall, so that one didn't need both sides doing, but came out quite well. They are a bit more fencing, a bit more greenery, a few more hedges, just using the sponge method, covered in flock. So yeah, a bit of back scene happening now. That was my first attempt at painting my own back scene, and it came out well enough for my liking. I think one of the wagons is actually off the track there. Looks a bit derailed, I hadn't noticed that before. So moving on to the second module, this is to be shunting yard. It's the industrial sort of scene, and I had intended to have it lower with the housing and scenery higher than it, but I actually flipped that round as I was working on it and thought we would raise up the railway area and use railway arches alongside. Thought that would be a little bit of a variation on theme. This warehouse, or two-story warehouse, the idea the back end of it will service the goods yard, and the front there with its roller doors will be for the vehicle access. That's the theory. That's a Modelux kit. Very nice kit. Very happy with it, except it didn't come with a roof. And despite multiple emails and assurances, the roof has never arrived. That's very frustrating. Otherwise, it would have had a very nice review to add in here, but right now it's frustrating. You can see there I do have the water tower. That's also Modelux. Again, good price. No real quibble with it as such. What it is, it's just very simple. The obligatory weight going down for the gluing of the track. So I thought I would show at this point I'm using point control, not electric, point motors or servos, just the old-fashioned. So I thought I would try and show that at this point. So a little bit of a pre-recorded segment coming up. Point control method using wire and tube. I've slightly adapted it with what I have. These are from an old pair of novelty glasses for the kids. They just happen to be the right diameter. And this is curtain wire, or net curtain. So I control it by placing one and the other, creating a flexible tube. You anchor the outer tube to the baseboard in different ways, and the end of it is your control mechanism. For this, I tend to use a paper clip, which I have one around somewhere, or at least parts of one. There's remnants of one. And you simply make an L shape, with the long part of the L being deliberately squint and untidy, so that it is wide enough to get a grip on the inside of this wire. So when you put that in there, a bit of force will go in. It will not easily come out again. You can pull it out if you have to, but the force of a point is not going to be anywhere near enough to take it out. At the other end, with the wire, you get curtain wire, you get the wee hooks for the ends. So you simply screw one into the end, and that's your controller. So there's a method and order to put it all together, but that basically works. So that's the idea. Let's see how we get on over here. Okay, that says just about got it. So the operation is, then we come to the other side. And the same applies all along. Excuse the wiring. That is the very basic version. Point control. Next up is to modify it so we have some level of remote uncoupling. So yeah, that's a change, but hopefully makes some sense. I should say these are now Hornby points. I was quite concerned about the large plastic frog on them, especially for such a small wheelbase as the 08. But it has had no problems, in fairness. It runs over them smoothly, really almost indistinguishably from the Peco points, which really surprises me. But for just now, I have no complaints, and they are half the price. So I'll report back if anything changes. Did actually just about manage to get the remote uncoupling working as well, although that will not, I don't think, be picked up on this video. Little shot of the through the bridge. You can see the 08 wee bit, there we are, bit of a better focus, and a bit of the back scene, and also some of the lampposts. These are old lampposts, are actually 00, but you can just adjust the height. Slightly overscale otherwise, but they serve the purpose. Working on a flyover here, I suppose, or a sort of girder bridge. There'll be a road underneath that, which hopefully you'll see in a moment. You can see the warehouse in the background, still roofless at this point. I've also been working on railway arches. I've done my own design for these on the right hand side in primer grey. I've been reasonably satisfied with them, that they're so far coming out quite nicely, and I can just print off as many as I need. There's about 8 or 9 of them at present. You can see that's the arches, and the inners. The inners are not my own design, they're just slightly scaled down what I can find on Thingiverse. They need a bit more finessing, as you can tell, but they'll hopefully give a bit of variety in life. I'm working on a road to go underneath there, and pavement to the side and so on. So that's the theory of how it'll work. You can see a little bit better there. The road's in, the railway arches, they're just sitting in situ, they're not fixed yet. I've also now got a roof on the warehouse, again thanks to the 3D printer, not thanks to Modelux, and we're getting there. So if you give me just a minute or two, we'll close up. That's the wee back hut that I've added on to the back end of the Modelux warehouse, and that should allow me to have a notional access out into the goods yard. Forgive the little A-Teams van, that's the only one I could find to print off to give me some idea of the right scale for vehicles. It won't be making it into the final cut, I rather doubt. So there we go. That's, you can see the layout as much as it is to see of it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you found it useful, and we'll see you again soon.